The WoW Mount Farm World Tour returns once again, and this time we'll be continuing where we left off with BFA, moving into the Kul'Tiras content. If you're not familiar with this series, we go from continent to continent, running through all of the various mounts you can find within those areas and how you'll pick them up, just in case you've missed that content in the past. Our first stop is going to be over in Tiragard Sound, and more specifically we'll be starting out in the city of Boralus. The first thing here to talk about will be Island Expeditions. This is a feature where you can queue up and you'll be in place with 2 other people, or you can queue up in a pre-made group of 3 people. In the future you will be able to do this solo live outs, but that's going to be in a future patch. You'll queue in, you'll complete the Island Expedition, and depending on the mob type found on the island, you'll have a chance of getting a mount. So for example, if there are Twilight Dragons present on the island, you'll have a chance of getting the Twilight Avenger mount. There's 9 of these random drop mounts that can come from islands: the Twilight Avenger, the Surf Jelly, the Craghorn Chasm Leaper, Squawks, Zinshow's Eternal Hound, Stonehide Elderhorn, Bludgegourd Hunter, Island Thunderscale, and the Risen Mare. So those are all going to have a chance of dropping, quite low chance, but they're all able to drop from any difficulty of Island Expeditions you do. Horde will also have access to this content within the Port of Zandalar within Zuldazar, and this content is accessible from like level 11 and above. You will need to kind of do the intro stuff to the BFA continent. Once you've done that, you'll be able to queue up for these, and they give it an okay amount of experience. While completing Island Expeditions, you will also be rewarded with these Seafarer doubloons, which you can use to purchase a Saltwater Seahorse for 500 of them, and the Siltwing Albatross for 1000. You'll also be able to purchase these crates, and within these crates you'll have a chance of getting one of the 9 RNG mounts we talked about earlier. Each crate will have a different type of mount that can drop from it, and I'll have those listed on the screen now. There's an Alliance ship nearby as well that will give you access to a trait tree, and one of those traits will give you a chance at extra doubloons, so definitely worth picking up if you don't have it. The next thing in this area will be a vendor that will sell you things in exchange for service medals. There'll be 3 mounts that you can purchase for these service medals. The first will be the Azure Shell Krolusk for 200 of them, the Sandy Night Saber for 350, and the Priestess's Moonsaber for 750. The Sandy Night Saber does have another requirement though. You do need to have completed the Warfront, which is Darkshore, on heroic difficulty before it is unlocked. You'll obtain these service medals from a few different methods. The first will be from Warfront world quests. If your faction is in control of Arathi Highlands or Darkshore, there'll be world quests there that you can do and they will award service medals. The next will be from completing the instance version of Warfronts. You'll be able to queue up for these if the battle is active. You'll queue in with other players or a pre-made group, and you'll complete that and you'll get some for completing that as well. The next will be faction assaults. The Horde will attack the Alliance, or the Alliance will attack the Horde. You can help attacking or defending. Completing that will get you some service medals also. And then finally you'll have Paragon caches. If you get exalted with the 7th Legion, every 10k reputation you get past exalted will give you access to a Paragon cache, and inside that Paragon cache will be service medals. That's going to be your main and best way of gaining the service medals. I do go into more detail about Island Expeditions and the service medal stuff in the previous episode, so if you want more details, do check out that video also. If you've got a lot of gold lying around, then the next thing you can do within Boralus is purchase the Palehide Direhorn for 500k gold from an NPC called Tricky Nick. Horde also has access to this, but that is going to be over in the Port of Dazar'alor from an NPC called Tolutu. Now this isn't attached to any faction, so you're not going to be able to get a reduction for being exalted. It's just going to cost you 500k gold if you really want that Direhorn. The next thing to talk about here is if you complete the achievement Ready for War, which is your faction's campaign questline, you'll unlock the ability to unlock Dark Iron Dwarfs, and once you get them you will get access to the Dark Iron Core Hound mount. Also, if you continue that campaign quest to the point where you finish Tides of Vengeance, and you do that for both Horde and Alliance, and then you also do a Nation United for Alliance and Zandalar Forever for Horde, which is basically to complete the main stories within each of the zones, then you will get yourself the Ironclad Frostclaw for Alliance and the Bloodflank Charger for Horde. And completing those things for just Alliance, so Tides of Vengeance and a Nation United, will allow you to welcome the Kul Tiran humans as an allied race, which will also give you access to their mount, which is the Kul Tiran Charger. The next thing to talk about will be reputation mounts. There's going to be a reputation within each of the zones, and getting that reputation to exalted will allow you to purchase 2 mounts. Now, I'm going to combine these all together while we're talking about how to gain the rep, because they all work pretty much the same. So how you'll gain reputation with these factions will be first of all completing the main story quest chain, which you can pick up within Boralus, and it'll send you off to the zones. You quest through the zone and you'll gain reputation as you go. And there will be some side quests in those zones that will give you some reputation also. The next method will be from world quests, and if you don't have world quests unlocked within Kul'Tiras, then what you'll want to do is head over to your ship within Boralus, and there should be a quest there that will unlock world quests for you. If you're not able to access that, then you may need to do the base requirement, which is to get friendly with each of the 3 zones. That'll be the Proudmoore Admiralty within Tiragard Sound, Storm's Wake within Stormsong Valley, and Order of Embers within Drusvar. Once you're friendly with all those 3, head back to your ship and you should get world quests. Once you have world quests unlocked, you will also now have access to emissary boxes. These are objectives to complete 4 world quests within specific zones, and if that zone is, for example, Tiragard Sound, you will get reputation with the Proudmoore Admiralty. So doing those whenever they're available is definitely recommended, because once you've done and hand that in, you'll get a big chunk of reputation. The final method of gaining reputation with these factions is over at your ship. You'll have a follower mission table. Send out your followers, and some of them will have missions that will reward reputation, so those ones are worth doing if you need some extra rep along the way as well. As we're currently in Tiragard Sound, we will talk about the first faction, or at least show off its mounts, and that will be the Proudmoore Admiralty. And the first mount you'll be able to purchase at Exalted will be the Admiralty Stallion, and then the other mount will be the Proudmoore Sea Scout. The final thing within Tiragard Sound to talk about is going to be the Dungeon Freehold, and if you complete this dungeon on Mythic difficulty, so do make sure your dungeon settings are set to Mythic before you head inside, then defeating the last boss will give you a chance at the mount called Sharkbait. This is going to be quite a low chance, kind of a 1%ish. And you're able to do this once per week as it is a mythic dungeon, so try and make use of your ults if they're geared enough. The nice thing about this run though is you can skip pretty much all of the bosses and head straight to the last boss. You will have to defeat some trash here and there, but just defeat the last boss each week for a chance at that mount. As mentioned though, this is going to be a bit of a tough solo. You are going to need to be relatively geared to get this done. Next up, we'll be moving into Stormsong Valley, and the first thing we'll talk about here is the reputation for the zone, which if you get them to Exalted, you'll be able to purchase 2 mounts, and that is going to be the Storm's Wake. The first mount you'll be able to get is the Dapple Grey, and then the other mount will be the Stormsong Coastwatcher. The next thing to talk about will be the Honeyback Harvester, which is going to be a mount only obtainable by Alliance and only usable by Alliance. So Horde, you're out of luck, you're not going to be able to get yourself this B mount. And to get this B mount, you'll need to go through a kind of hidden reputation, that when you get this reputation to Exalted and get the B to its highest friendship status as well, you will get yourself the mount. So to get this started, you will need one of 2 bee pets. The first one will be the Sea Breeze Bumblebee, and that is going to require you to be revered with Storm's Wake. Once you are revered, you can purchase that for 250 polished pet charms. The other one is going to be Bumbles, and that's going to be a bit more work to get. You will need to complete 7 days of daily quests, and you will have to unlock those daily quests as well. So whichever one you have currently or whatever, you don't need both, you just need one of these pets. If you're going after Bumbles, then the approach is to complete a quest chain in Stormsong Valley called Mayhem at Milden Hill Meaderer. Once you completed that, the last quest will be back to the lab. Then you'll unlock the ability to have this honey amulet drop. And there's a few places you can farm for this. One is pretty much nearby in the area with these like oozes, the honey oozes. Or alternatively, way off in kind of the northwest of the zone, there's a hill with a bunch of little packs of bumblebees that you can farm for this as well. They do have a bit of a long respawn though, but there are a bunch of packs, so you can maybe go clear those and then head back to the honey monster things while you're waiting. Those did seem the higher drop chance ones to kill for the honey amulet though, so probably worth killing those whenever they're up. Once you have the amulet, you'll take this over to Rosaline Milden Hall in Boralus, and this NPC moves positions, so what I'll have on the screen now is the various possible positions for this NPC. What I'd recommend doing is doing a /target macro for it as you're kind of flying around Boralus, and then you're going to be able to find it a little bit easier. Once you find the NPC, head down to it, give it the amulet, and then you'll be sent back to the boy that you aided earlier on the quest chain with Bumbles. You'll give the amulet, and then you'll finally unlock the daily quests. Then from there, it's just a case of completing 7 days of dailies, and you'll get yourself the pet. The next step is to find an NPC called Barry, but luckily he's nearby. You're not going to have to move too far to find him. He'll be near the water. He'll have a bunch of bees on him. You need to summon your bee pet, and then he'll kind of be interactable. And then once that's done, there'll be this kind of like pheromone trail that you can follow. You want to follow that trail, and eventually it will lead you to a cave. Now, you don't want to go inside this cave, don't make the same mistake I did, as it'll kick you out of the cave. You basically just want to stand in front of the cave and wait for the RP to finish. Once the RP is finished, then Barrier will basically say you need a way of pleasing the Hive Mother, and the way you're going to get that done is by looting a fin jelly that's nearby. It's basically just to the left of the cave. You'll go over, you'll loot that, and then you'll head back and talk to Barrier again, go through his dialogue options, and you'll be able to then please the Hive Mother and enter the cave. Once you're in the cave, there'll be a little bee that you can feed, and you'll gain reputation and friendship with the bee. From here, you can finally start the reputation grind, and this is something you could grind out in a couple of days if you really went ham with it, or you could get it done in a few minutes if you've got the gold. But the way this is going to work is you'll have a few methods. First of all, you'll need to collect honey. There'll be 3 different types of honey you'll be able to pick up: fin jelly, rich jelly, and royal jelly. Although early on into the reputation kind of cycle, you'll only really be getting thin jelly. As you progress more, you'll get rich and royal. The next one will be killing a NPC or rare elite called Honey Smasher. This is killable once per day, even though it respawns quickly, you're only going to get credit once per day, and that will give you 500 rep, plus some items as well, like honey that you can hand in. The next method will be these Honeyback Harvester events. There'll be a little bee across the zone, there's multiple of them. There's only going to be one up at a time though. You'll find this bee, you'll speak to it, and you'll start an event where there will be waves of mobs to kill. You'll kill all the waves, and then you'll wait, and eventually you'll have this thing that you can loot, and you'll get some honey from that as well. Also, during the event, there will be some of these rare elites that will spawn, and these will give you items that you can hand in for additional reputation also. Now, that honey that we mentioned before, the thin jelly, rich jelly, and royal jelly, that is all purchasable as well, so you can purchase these from the auction house and get the reputation grind done instantly if you do have the gold. I bought way too many, but this should cost you around 100 to 200k depending on your realm, obviously some more expensive than others, and it'll take you roughly, this isn't accurate, but roughly 270 royal jelly to get it done, or 540 rich jelly, or 2160 thin jelly, or a combination of those 3. So do make sure you're purchasing just roughly the right amount to get yourself to Exalted, and then you may need a little bit more as well to get your friendship with the bee to max, and once you've met those 2 requirements, you will get yourself the bee mount. To find the honey easier, I would recommend an add-on called Gathermate 2, and then that add-on has a plugin called Jelly Deposit Locations. And if you have both of those and you kind of set it up, then that will display all the possible locations on your map, and you can fly around and check those, and it just makes life a little bit easier for you. But yeah, repeat those steps and keep going until you do get yourself your bee mount. The next mount we're going to talk about is Goldenmane, which is an extremely low drop chance mount from specific mobs within the zones. And this is also a BOE mount, so if you wanted to purchase it you can, but this one ends up being one of the more expensive BOE mounts you can purchase that drop within the zones at least. So for a chance of this mount, what you'll want to do is defeat the Corrupt Tide Sage / Old God style mobs within the zones. The more recommended and commonly farmed place is the Brinework, which you'll find just around Marina's Strand, I think it's called. And there is another good spot as well, just southwest of here. There'll be a bunch of mobs there that you can farm as an alternative. But there are a bunch of places within Stormsong Valley that you could potentially farm if these ones are crowded. It's basically just hunting down a good area with these kind of Corrupt Tide Sage related mobs in them. The nice thing about that farm though for Goldenmane is these mobs are tied to the Old Gods, which means they also have a chance of dropping these Abyssal Fragments, and if you get 20 Abyssal Fragments, you will get yourself the Nazjatar Blood Serpent. Although Abyssal Fragments do have a ton of sources, it doesn't have to be in Stormsong Valley specifically, it just makes sense here because you can be targeting 2 things at once. The Abyssal Fragments are also purchasable from the auction house as well. If you've got the gold, you could buy the 20 you need, turn them into the Abhorrent Essence of the Abyss, and then you'll take that over to just near the Shrine of Storms dungeon within Stormsong Valley. Just to the left, you'll find like a waterfall looking thing. Inside will be a cave, and then there'll be an altar there that you can use this on. And for level 60 players, there'll be a mob that spawns that should be very, very trivial for you. But if you're doing this at a low level, you might need some players to help you. But only the person who uses the item will get the mount, everyone else just can kind of take part. Stormsong Valley now out of the way, we'll be moving over to our final zone, which is going to be Drusvar, and not too much for you to do here. The first thing will be the zone's reputation, which will be the Order of Embers. Get that to Exalted and you'll be able to purchase yourself the Smoky Charger or the Dusky Waycrest Gryphon. And then the final thing to do within this zone is get your hands on the chewed on reins of the Terrified Pack Mule. But like the other zone drops, this is going to be an extremely low drop chance where you're going to be killing tens or hundreds of thousands of mobs to get it to drop. And to purchase this off the auction house, because it is BOE, this is going to be one of the more expensive of the 4 to pick up, so do also keep that in mind as well. To get this to drop, it drops from the Hex Thralled mobs, so basically the mobs that are being kind of controlled and manipulated by the witches. Those mostly have a chance of dropping the mount. So I'll have some areas marked on the map now for you to go and check out. These are some of the more recommended areas to farm, but just pick a spot, farm the Hex Thralled mobs, and eventually maybe you'll get yourself that drop. But we're not quite finished yet. Now that we've covered the main 2 continents, there are a few other mounts we can touch on as well. The first being the Great Sea Ray, which can be fished up from any of the open waters within any of the 6 zones we've covered in the last 2 videos. So you can head out there, just fish in the open water, and you'll have a very low drop chance of getting your hands on this Great Sea Ray. This is also BOE though, so you could sell it or purchase it from the auction house too. The next mount to talk about will be the Obsidian Krolusk, and this is awarded from completing the Glory of the War-Torn Hero achievement, which is basically all the little achievements found in the various dungeons across Zandalar and Kul'Tiras. You'll complete all the different achievements, then you'll get yourself the mount, but some of these are going to require a group, so what I would recommend doing is just forming a group to run through them all, and that's going to give you the higher chance of getting them all done. The next mount to touch on will be the Conqueror's Scythemaw, which is awarded from completing the Conqueror of Azeroth achievement. This is basically to do a bunch of PvP related achievements within Kul'Tiras and Zandalar. Getting that done now is pretty rough because there aren't as many players around now that we're in Shadowlands. So yeah, it's going to be a bit rough, but there is someone who's found a kind of, we'll call it clever use of game mechanics that's been working for a very long time now. I don't want to talk about it specifically in the video because obviously it's not really intended to work like that. But if you are interested in getting the Tour of Duty achievements done very quickly, then I would recommend checking a comment linked in the description below. And that will send you over to the Wowhead post where it talks about the method that they use. The final thing to talk about is a mount I actually missed from the Zandalar episode, so I thought I'd recover it here, and that is going to be the Mecha Mogul Mk2. And this requires a BFA engineering to have max skill, but once they craft the mount, it is usable by anyone and also buyable and sellable on the auction house. If you want, you could buy it or sell it there. To craft it yourself though, what you'll need is your engineering to max level in BFA, and then you'll need to craft the BFA goggles, the engineering goggles, and unlock all of the traits that give you the additional engineering skill. Once you've got those things, you can run the Motherload on Mythic, which you'll find within Zandalar, but you do need to make sure you have the goggles equipped. And then there'll be a bunch of mechs in here that you can kill and scrap them as engineering to get parts that you'll need for the mount. There'll also be an NPC in here, basically just before the first boss in a room called Dr. Boom, that you can talk to and purchase an item for 30k that's also going to be needed for the mount. Then you'll also kill these mega mines within the dungeon to loot an elixir, and once you have that elixir, you'll need to use that before you defeat the final boss, otherwise you won't be able to get the Mark 1 activation device, because your skill won't be high enough. So once you've done all that, you'll basically just be rinse and repeating, getting the components from these various different places, and then getting the recipe itself is basically doing that same thing but killing the last boss as well with your high engineering skill, and you'll get the recipe. And then once you've got the recipe, it's repeating the steps I just mentioned until you're able to craft a mount. So that does bring us to the end of our Kul'Tiras and Zandalar world tours. In the next episode, I'll probably be squeezing the Mechagon and Nazjatar stuff into one video, if it's not too long at least, and then we'll continue from there. So look out for that coming in the near future. Outside that, thanks for watching guys, see ya.